Welcome back, everybody, to episode 45 of the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast, coming to you from very snowy Minnesota these last few days. My name is Josh. As always, here with Troy. What's going on, good buddy?
Just got done plowing the driveway for the second time today. Good times.
I figure me and my 17-year-old son have about 6 hours into it over the last 2 days. It is a lot of snow, very wet, very heavy.
Yeah, it's that stupid snow that's just like, even if you shovel it, I mean, we have a plow, but even that, it gets, once you get near the street and the plow has pushed it up with all the salt, then it's just like, I don't know a good term, but it like poops out the blower, or it just kind of falls out. It doesn't even shoot it out. It just falls out of the blower.
Could have snowboarded off of the mound at the end of our driveway this morning. It was pretty big from the plow coming through last night, but we made it. It's always nice, though, when you have that unexpected 6 hours of plowing in your day. But we're here. We got the show ready. I've got a glass of Jameson. What else could I ask for? So I guess, Troy, this is our first normal episode of 2023. If you call any of our episodes normal, I guess that would be it. Looking ahead to Monday, I get nervous doing this in case something happens where it falls through. But do want to let people know we are planning and have scheduled to have the Sports Card Cartel back on the show Monday for another Hockey Cards Masterclass. Last time he was on, we looked at 80s OBG, and it was amazing. Got tons of great feedback on the show. This time we're going to look at the Upper Deck sets from 2005 through 2014. So very excited about that one for sure. Also, reminder to everyone that the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast is a Patreon podcast. That means we rely on your support to help cover expenses, continue to produce more and hopefully better hockey card content, and help us fund initiatives that grow the hockey hobby in even a small way. Right now, you can join our out of 99 support level tier. Forever have that title. It's $5 a month. Easy to do on the Patreon website. Just go to Patreon, search for Hockey Cards Gongshow. Or there's a link in the description of the podcast app you're listening to us on. And finally, in our link tree, which you can find on our social sites, there's a link to our Patreon as well. Since our last show, we do have a couple of new patrons, and we want to shout out. Thank you to Spencer and Canadian Stumpy. I wonder where that name... a lot of ways you could go with that, Troy.
Yep, I love it
too, but we'll keep this a family show.
Yep, I like unique, fun nicknames.
All right, Troy, you ready for the game plan?
All right, on today's show, we begin with the best NHL player to wear number 45. And using the term best might be stretching it a little bit. Then it's off to movers and shakers. We then take a quick look at some hockey cards in the current PWCC weekly auction. Next, it's on to hobby news, followed by new product releases. And we end the show with our social media roundup and listener mailbag. All right, I should apologize. I'm bitter about number 45. I guess I'm not being very nice to him. But so the most famous player, the best NHL player to wear number 45 in the NHL per the Hockey Writers article is Aaron Asham.
Okay,
and Aaron is spelled you gotta have this. His Aaron is spelled Arron. So I always like unique spellings. That's kind of neat.
Oh yeah, I just noticed that. I gotta be totally honest here. I have no idea who this is. I know we're gonna get a whole bunch of messages that we're supposed to be hockey card experts, which we've never professed to be, by the way. Right? We've always said that we're just a couple guys who really love hockey cards and are learning about the hobby and taking you along for the ride. I have no clue who this is. Did you?
I had heard of the name, but I couldn't. I didn't know he played this long. I didn't know his career, who he played for, any of this. So I learned a bunch of new information, but it's pretty interesting. I definitely wasn't on my radar. I don't even remember having any cards of his.
Is this the worst one so far out of the... We've done about 20 now, haven't we?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess worst. Maybe he might be the lowest point total, if I remember right, but I'm not sure. But so anyone that is familiar or not familiar, he was a right winger, played 789 regular season career games over a 15-year NHL career. So he was in this league for 15 years, and I think we don't know. We don't. I remember the name. I just don't remember watching him play at all. He started his career with 4 seasons in Montreal, then played 4 years with the Islanders, a year with the Devils, 2 years with the Flyers, then 2 years with the Penguins, ending his career with 2 seasons with the Rangers. So kind of a journeyman going there.
Can you
Awards
imagine
and
if this is
accomplishments.
sorry? Can you imagine
No,
if this is somebody's first show?
Oh my God. And they're like, what? Who, what? You telling me? But that's it. That's number 45. That was our greatest player. Actually, I'm going to look at who the runner-up was. Jonathan Bernier. So there you go. Maybe is there anyone? I want to say currently wearing 45 that could take over his place. I'm not going to.
We got to get to good numbers soon. But hey, we're going to continue the process because we're committed to the bit. So
committed. Well, you got to remember all these 40s, 50s, even 60s. I'm sure it's just really hit or miss. All right, awards and accomplishments. Nothing. No individual hardware. No Stanley Cups. I always feel bad when I say that because I could go back and probably find something in their junior career. As a Pee-wee, probably what is it? Adams. I can't remember what the Canadian designations are for like squirts, Pee-wees, Bantams. But during his career, 94 goals, 114 assists for 208 points.
In 15 years?
15 years.
Wow. Yeah, they
did
don't
make the. I think this is the lowest. I'm pretty sure this is the lowest point total.
Well, it has to be. Wow. Okay.
But he did make the playoffs in 10 of his 15 seasons in the NHL. 72 games played, 11 goals, 8 assists for 19 points. His career high season on points was 2002, 2003, when he had 15 goals, 19 assists for 34 points with the Islanders. That's about all I got. I mean, he does have his own charity. That was kind of neat, I found. Aaron's chance to play hockey. His foundation's mission.
You love the charities.
Yeah. I love the charity work. His mission is to work in partnership with the community to provide opportunities that will enhance the emotional, physical, social, and intellectual well-being of children. Love it. I actually went out to the website. It looks like it's still active. That's one thing I always worry about with some of these. You read the charity things. You go out there and it hasn't been updated since 2012. But this one
how many
of them
are their way to like launder their taxes?
Oh, well, it just took a turn right there. Took a turn.
Took a turn.
So, anyways, fun fact. Asham played for all 5 teams in the former Atlantic Division during his career. This is the 1998 to 2013 Atlantic Division iteration. He is also the only player to score a goal with every Atlantic Division team during that iteration of what the Atlantic Division was. There you go. Fun fact. You don't seem too thrilled about those fun facts compared to last week.
No, those are good. You're very good at the fun facts. I just can't get over this. Does the NHL not have any good players, or what's happening here?
Yeah, I'm sure there was probably, back in the day, they probably didn't even wear numbers this high. I'm sure Gretzky, I mean, I shouldn't say that. Gretzky obviously being 99, but I wonder if there was some rule back in the day, like these 40s, 50s, 60s just don't have a lot of players that wore them. All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now the big stuff, what everyone's waiting for, the cards. His rookie card, 1995-96 Upper Deck, number 509. It's a program of excellence. Only one graded copy in existence. Who has it? Maybe it's a listener. I'd love it if a listener had it.
It's probably his aunt.
It's probably. And it's graded a PSA 8, so it's not even a 10. He only has 3 graded cards in the whole PSA database and no BGS graded cards. That tells you about all you need to know. But his 1995-96 Upper Deck Electric Ice, so a variant or a parallel, number 509. I did find a sale for that one. October 16th, it went for $10.82 on eBay, and that was raw. So that's it's one of those cards. It's not. I didn't look and see if they're ready for sale. I should have, like if there's any current ones, but not a lot on the old hockey card front or the rookie card front. But again, love learning about players that I don't know a lot about. Find some interesting stuff about them. But that's what we got. It's on to movers and shakers. We're about 7
minutes into Aaron Asham, and it's probably about 6.5 minutes too much. So there you go. Is 46 going to restore my faith in legendary hockey players or not?
I mean, it's definitely something heard of. Long career. It's a decent player.
Danny Heatley?
No, not Danny Heatley.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that was amazing. You did great. You did have a lot to work with there. You made so much out of so little, Troy. I'm so impressed with that. We're going to move on to Who's Hot, and hopefully people that we've all heard of. First guy we want to talk about this week is our first flyer on Gongshow Who's Hot, Troy. This is a moment. He's Travis Konechny the 25-year-old Canadian forward for your Philadelphia Flyers, Troy. He's having a pretty good year so far. 19 goals, 18 assists for 37 points in 32 games played. I know, Troy, this isn't a math show, but that's more than 1 point per game, in case you're wondering.
That is it. That's definitely more than 1 point per game.
Mm-hmm. Last 5 games, Konechny has 5 goals, 4 assists for 9 points. Pretty good there. Take that. So the question, he's scoring so much, is when does Tortorella bench him?
When does he do the one, like this very minor thing that Tortorella just blows up and thinks he's just ruined everything and benches him and tries to fight him in the locker or the hallway?
Man, never a dull moment when he's your coach, huh? I think I said Tortorella. It's Tortorella. I know it. His career best, Troy, for Konechny was 2019 when he had 61 points, so he's got a good chance of eclipsing that this year if he stays healthy. Unfortunately, not on a great team, though. The Flyers are currently 7th in the Metropolitan Division and don't look like they're going to be a playoff team, so that could hurt, I guess, his values going forward. From a hockey card perspective, Konechny is a 2016 Young Gun PSA 10. Pop, I think it's like $325. Last sold for $50 US on December 29th. Troy, it had dipped to $23 US back on December 24th. Boy, that barely covers the grading costs.
Yeah, that's
he's a decent player. I'm not saying he should be worth $600, but I don't know. From a value standpoint, the card seems to swing from the mid-20s to the low 50s, depending on, I guess, which way the wind's blowing. All-time high is 122 US. That was set in October 2021. So it's less than half right now. It's all-time high. But Konechny playing well, still pretty young, 25. Any thoughts?
We need an Irish Flyers collector to give us a scouting report on Konechny.
Yeah. Next guy you might have heard of is Alex Ovechkin. I think it's Ovi's first time on Who's Hot. I kind of wish I knew more about my own show at this point, but I don't think we talk about it almost every episode, so it's hard to know. The
sad thing is you said that, and I'm like searching my memory banks. I'm like, I don't know. Like now the names just run into each other. I don't know if they were on the Hot, the Struggle Bus. I don't know where they're at. I've heard the name. It's about as good as you get with me.
We'll go with this his first time in Who's Hot. That sounds fun to me. The 37-year-old who sits at number 2, Troy, all time in the all-time scoring list, is currently also 8th in the NHL in scoring in 2022-23 with 28 goals, 19 assists. That's 47 points in 40 games. So he's about a game away from the halfway point on the season, in which he's pacing for 57 goals for a 37-year-old. It's just mind-blowing, right? Most goals scored in a season by a player 37 or older was Brendan Shanahan. He scored 42 goals at age 37. It's so confusing, like how they tabulate that, because I think that was in parts of 2 seasons, but they tabulated as goals that he scored when he was 37 years old. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. That's how I would do it.
So I don't know how many Ovi has scored exactly at age 37 yet, but this season he's on pace for, like I said, 57 goals, I believe. He's also currently tied for 3rd with Bo Horvat for most goals in the NHL this season. I could literally put you to sleep with amazing Ovi stats and figures and factoids, but I think we'll just agree he's good, right?
Very good.
Last 5 games, he's got only 8 goals and 1 assist for 9 points. Why is he passing? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, he passed one when he shouldn't. Stop passing, Ovi. Just shoot the stupid puck. Get that Corsi 4 up. Let's go.
I've heard many of these goals came with a goalie, too, which is pretty impressive. From a hockey cards perspective, his 2005 Upper Deck Young Gun PSA 10 popped 1,083, last sold for an even 6,500 US on December 27th. His card try is up 30% in the past month. I look back at the last year, and so remember, it's a pop count for PSA 10 of 1,083. That has increased by 122 since the beginning of 2022. So you go back about a year ago, it was pop 961. So there are still, what's about a 10% increase or 13% increase in a year. I don't know what that means. I thought it was interesting. All-time high for this card was 9,300 US from June 2022. So you're getting close to 10,000 US on a Young Guns base card. That's a lot, huh?
Seems high.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have the gumption to do that. So that 6,500 mark and 9,300 got me interested to look at his Future Watch Auto. And if you compare that to his 2005 Future Watch Auto out of $999, of course, the BGS 9.510, that last sold on December 13th for $9,000 US. It's down about 9% in the past 3 months. All-time high, though, $19,600 US from last April. So down more than half.
That's April 2022.
April 2022.
Okay.
What's interesting to me comparing these cards is if the Young Gun PSA 10 base is 6,500 and climbing, and you can get a Future Watch Auto BGS 9510 for 9,000. To me, the better play is the Future Watch. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. It's autographed, and I got a limited number. Now, $9.99, obviously. That's about the pop of the Young Gun PSA 10 right now. Yeah, a little bit less, but at least you know that's not going up.
Okay, for the third guy and who's hot, we're going to let you take the reins, Troy. Troy has the conch.
I got the conch. All right, Ilya Sorokin. I'm sure everyone's heard about him. Over his past 5 starts, he is 3-2 with a 2.02 goals against and a .924 save percentage. He had a very rough late November to mid-December where he lost 5 straight outings. However, on December 19th, he had a 46-game shutout against Colorado, which seemed to get him back on track. Now, I say shutout. They did lose that game because it went to a shootout, and the Islanders lost. But that was kind of a turning point recently in his season.
So does that still count as an official shutout?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Kind of wild to think about.
Yep, still counts as a shutout. This is where you get weird when you look at wins, losses, and then that third column's like overtime losses now is what it means. It doesn't mean ties. It means overtime losses. I think. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Anyways, currently Sorokin is in the top 4 for goals against average, save percentage, goals saved above average, and shutouts. So he's having a fairly pretty good season. His Young Guns is a 2020 Young Guns. PSA 10 has a pop of 422. We've talked about this card before, and it's just one that I always remember because it's $100. That's what I go for. It goes for $100. It's up about $5 to $10 from late November. And I should say $100 US if I didn't. But yeah, it's kind of floated around. There's a little $20 range, plus or minus, but it floats right around that. It usually sells for that $100 price point. So again,
you're right, though. Sorokin goes basically from the Who's Hot list to the struggle bus and lives nowhere in between.
Yeah. Yep. That's what we're finding out with goalies. It's kind of crazy. And we're going to get, I'm going off on a tangent, but we'll get to a guy on the struggle bus that actually ties into our whole discussion on NHL scoring because he had a neat quote that I'm going to bring up during the struggle bus. But onto the bus. Where is it?
Oh, there it is. Troy, it's not the struggle bus, though. Today, it's the Autobus de Lutte. Blame Google if that was bad. It is an all Montreal version of the struggle bus. Wow. This is a first. Kind of exciting there.
The Bus de Lutte, is that French? Is that struggle bus in French, right?
Well, one time Google just had Bus, and then they had, the next time I looked, it was Autobus. So I don't know
I like
which one it is. I kind of do. Autobus de Lutte is the struggle bus this week. We'll let you keep rolling since you got the first guy.
All right. Jake Allen. Oof. Things have not been going well for Mr. Jake Allen recently. Last 5 games, 0-4-1 with a 4.59 goals against average, a .869 save percentage, with a 9-goal outing on December 31st against the Capitals. I don't know.
I told you Ovechkin never plays against a goalie.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't watch that game. I didn't research it. 9 goals stings. I wonder why they left him in so long. Maybe they didn't have a goalie or a backup was injured, or they had the E-Bug sitting there. Emergency backup goaltender, if you don't know what E-Bug stands for. It's basically the guy they pull out of the stands. Not really. It's usually someone that practices with the team every once in a while.
Okay, I have a question for you, though.
Yeah.
If you've left your goalie in after 9 goals have been scored, is that a slap in the face against your goalie?
Who knows? I don't know. It depends on his reasoning. You can have 100 reasons why. Could be someone, the backup was injured and didn't feel confident with him. Could be you're ticked off and you just want to, you want the goalie to learn a lesson. You what Trombley did with Trombley with Patrick Waugh, and then Waugh skated up his last game in Montreal ever. skated up to the bench, and they had the executives sitting right behind it and basically told them all that that's the last game I'm playing for the Canadians. But
yeah,
I would think after 6, maybe you'd get him out of there, but who knows what the situation was. All right, for the season, Allen is 9-15-1 with a 3.52 goals against average and a .94 save percentage with 0 shutouts. Now, I kind of mentioned this before, doing some research, reading about him. He had a really interesting quote on offense that he's seen currently in the NHL. Allen's been around for a while. He's been in the league a while. And his quote kind of resonates, says, "I've never seen it faster. I've never seen more east-west. No lead is safe anymore. As you've seen around the league, it used to be you get up 3-1 and the game was over. Not anymore." So, I mean, it's just kind of telling of what the scoring pace in the NHL and how skilled these players are. There was another article recently in The Athletic. Where's my check, Athletic? I need my check. I keep mentioning it. But they do another kind of breakdown on scoring and how it's just taking off. So it's pretty interesting to hear him say that.
Can you break down really quickly a little bit of the whole north, south, east, west thing? Because I'll hear, like, when the Wild are struggling, Dean Evison will like to say, we're not going north, south enough. And now we're hearing Jake Allen say that he's never seen more east, west.
Yeah. So
how does that impact the game?
Yeah.
Differently
when I think about
east,
west with the goalie talking about, there's a concept called this Royal Road. If you take a line and go from the center of the net and run it all the way to the center of the other net, there's this royal line. And analytics show us if you can pass a puck across that line and then have a shot, you make the goalie move, they get scored on more. That's what I think of, like, east-west.
Oh, okay.
North-south, if I'm a goalie and I'm seeing a lot of north-south, I just see a lot of people coming at me. They're not moving. They're not getting me moving. They're not making me moving. We know scoring goes up almost exponentially if you can get the goalie to have a pre-movement before a shot. They've actually done the research on how many, like, inches or feet it is, but I don't even remember what it is. But that's what I think of when I hear a goalie talk about east-west, north-south.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep. Allen's.
All right. So driving the autobus de lutte, right?
Yep. He's leading it. He's leading it. Now his Young Guns is a 2012 Young Guns. The PSA 10 is a Pop 22. It doesn't sell very often. The last one I could find was in January of 2022 for $63. So just for a reference.
Next guy from the Canadians is the 19-year-old number 1 overall pick, Juraj Slafkovsky, who Troy has 0 points in the past 5 games. He's averaging about 11 minutes time on ice. For the season, so 2022-23, he has 4 goals, 6 assists for 10 points in 33 games played, which puts him currently 24th on the rookie scoring leaders list. Just to give a little point of context, Matty Beniers leads rookie scoring with 27 points, so compare that to Slafkovsky's 10. Currently playing on Montreal's 4th line and 2nd power play unit per daily faceoff. Saw some articles today, Troy, where it seems like it's a little controversial that people think he shouldn't be on the 4th line and should have, I guess, better line mates to play with and grow into his game a little bit. Apparently, though, he's also, I don't know if you've heard this, but he's developing a reputation for keeping his head down and conversely getting rocked a lot.
Ooh, that's not good.
They're calling it one of the easiest hits in the NHL right now. Now, the reason why I wanted to include him, he's 19. It's his first year. He's going to be up and down. But if you recall, in our 2023 predictions episode on Monday, right, one of the polls that we did is who's going to be the biggest chase in Series 2 for Young Guns. And I think we all presume that Slafkovsky's played enough where he'll probably be. I don't think they want to put the number 1 pick in extended, right? So I'm pretty confident that he'll be a Series 2 Young Gun, or UD2, as the cool guys like to call it. And the response was overwhelmingly that he was going to be the biggest chase of anyone. So we could have looked at, I guess, like his MVP silver script pricing, but I don't know. I think that's kind of boring at this point. Yeah. What I think the more interesting question is, do you think he really deserves at this point to be the biggest chase in Series 2 based on, you look at like another guy like Wyatt Johnston from Dallas, who should also likely be a Series 2 Young Gun as well, has, I think, double the points, Slafkovsky. Definitely a lot more goals.
Yeah, I think just from the hype and where he went in the draft, he'll still be the biggest chase. And it seems like the hobby has been pretty forgiving a little bit. Like, let's look at Laffy. Like, he's never been stellar, but he's still a pretty big chase, and people get excited when they get him. But I think he will be the biggest chase. I agree with the poll. The poll results had him first, right? If I remember right.
Oh yeah, by far.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even close. The second.
I think he's just young and has got to develop and keep his head up so he doesn't get rocked, because that's not good.
Does it worry you, his slow start, or do you chalk it up to he started in the league when he was 18?
Not really. I chalk it up to being 19, playing in the hugest or the biggest market. A lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's who's hot in the struggle bus for the Thursday edition of the Gongshow podcast. So again, on who's hot, we had Travis Konechny, Alex Ovechkin, and Ilya Sorokin, and then our all Montreal Autobus de Lutte was Jake Allen and Yaroslav Slavkovsky.
I can't wait for the amount of messages you get on how you
blame Google. I blame Google. Sorry, all I can do is what Google. I don't have a French coach that lives in my house. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll be sponsored by French-speaking people. I don't know, and they'll teach us how to speak it correctly. Okay, we want to spend a little bit of time on the current PWCC weekly auction. As you may know, they are a Gong Show partner and sponsor. We want to thank them again for supporting the hockey hobby and content providers like us. Certainly means a lot. Like every week, Troy, there's some really, I think, cool cards that stand out in the weekly auction. I think there's 193 cards in this week's weekly auction.
Cards, right?
Hockey cards, if I remember correctly. And so we just want to roll through a couple of them. This is one of the more fun things I do because I learn a lot on some of these cards. I'll find one and be like, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. And then I'll spend an hour going down the rabbit hole, learning a whole bunch of stuff. And what's great is get to pass that along to you guys. So the first one I want to look at is, for all you'll like this one, Troy. You're a goalie enthusiast. Yep. Lauren Chabot. Boy, another French name here. Really killing it with the French names. It's a 1933 Worldwide Gum Ice Kings. Worldwide Gum Ice Kings. PSA 4, which is pop 7 with 7 graded higher. This is a really, really cool card if you're a goalie collector. And you got to go to the PWCC site, go to the weekly auction, take a look at these so you get a good kind of context what we're talking about.
I just want to know who said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this card, but we're going to have the goalie hold his stick like he's a forward or like a skater.
I know, isn't that weird?
He's holding it like a skater. It's kind of funny looking, but it's a super cool card.
I really love the pre-war kind of cards. I just think they're awesome. Chabot was a 2-time Stanley Cup winner, 1-time Vezina Trophy winner. He played for a number of teams, Troy, the Rangers, Leafs, Canadiens, and Blackhawks. Well, I guess back then was pretty much all the teams, right? So they played for four of the 6 teams. Here's what's crazy about him, though, and what really kind of got me just, again, down that rabbit hole. So in 1998, he was named to the Hockey Writers' top 100 NHL players of all time. In fact, Troy, he was number 84 on that list. To this day, he's the only player of the 100 that's not in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Interesting.
He played from 1926 to 37, so this card is a little bit from the later part of his career. He is in a Habs jersey, so if you're Montreal or a vintage goalie collector, what might be a cool one to pick up. It's got a white border. The centering is really good. Last sale on a PSA 4 like this one. Again, it's the 1933 Worldwide Gum Ice Kings. Lauren Chabot was for about $256 back in April 2019. So not going to break the bank, but kind of cool pre-war vintage goalie card. Well, this is like turning into just a whole Canadians episode here. So the next one is a 1966 Topps John Beliveau autographed PSA 6.5, where the auto has a 9 grade. Beliveau, of course, is a 2-time Hart winner, Art Ross winner. He was the inaugural Conn Smythe winner.
Nice.
A 10-time Stanley Cup champion as a player. His name is also on the Cup 7 times as an executive. So, Troy, that puts him on the Cup 17 times.
That's pretty good.
He has more real estate on the Stanley Cup than anyone in history. That ain't bad, huh? The set, of course, 1966 Topps is mainly known for the Bobby Orr rookie. It's a horizontal card. It kind of looks like a 1960s TV, so matches the time period real good. And as you probably all know by now, that's kind of a big deal for me in vintage. I love when you can look at a card and just know roughly when it's from. It's not, again, just like with Chabot, it's not an early card of his. He's got cards from 1951, 52, and 53, which one of the things that's interesting here about Beliveau is that when you look at like sales listings and titles, most of them will say his 1953 Parkhurst is his rookie card. But there's a number of sales for 19, and they're not like card specific brands, like, so it's like bread and bubblegum and milk and those sort of kind of things. But it is interesting that most people consider his 53 Parkhurst his rookie. And that's honestly something that I need to look into a little bit more because I'm curious why.
It's kind of like baseball though, right? With Mantle, the 52 tops is his rookie, is considered his rookie, but there's also a 51.
Bowman, right?
Bowman, yeah.
I didn't say Bauman. I said
Bowman.
Bowman.
Don't worry, I had to sit there and think in my head, it's Bowman, say Bowman. We want to get it right. Got to get it right.
Yeah. So anyways, going back to the John Beliveau 66 tops, PSA 6 auto, grade 9. Kind of what this one stood out to me is it's an autoed version of this card. You don't see too many from these sets, at least I haven't, that are autoed. Obviously an all-time great player. The card presents really well. It's a 6.5, but it's really nicely centered and doesn't have any like noticeable or distracting flaws. The auto's in a great position. It's really cool. It's a touch faded in places. That's why I'm guessing it got a 9 grade. There's only 146 sales on the card, and this card in the card letter sales history. Top sale to date was a PSA 8.5 that went for about $1,525 US in 2016. So it'll be interesting to compare a 6.5 graded card to an 8.5, but with the 6.5 having the auto, where it ends up. It's just a really cool card and worth going to look at for fun, if nothing else. All right, in the more vintagey type ones, you had one that stood out to you.
Yeah, vintage might be a stretch for this one, but it's it's a 1987-88 top stickers, number 2, Ron Hextall. I loved Ron Hextall, so this was totally me geeking out when I saw this card on there, so I had to write it down. It has a Ron Hextall auto. And just a little story about me, when we played in elementary school, we'd go outside, for recess. Even in the winter, we went out for recess. We'd always play hockey, but we played hockey with a kickball. And we'd go down to the backstop at the baseball field, and I'd be the goalie. And I was kind of a brute because anytime anyone came near me, I'd push them over because I just said that's what Hextall would do. Like, why are you getting mad at me? I'm Hextall. That's what I do. So I used to play as him when we did kickball or hockey kickball all the time. If you look at the card, you look at the auto, and I think it reads best wishes, Ron Hextall. So I don't know if that takes away with it, with the little inscription, but at least it's generic enough. It's not a name or anything. It's like,
well, it's better than go F yourself, Ron Hextall. I mean, at least it's a nice sentiment.
To Josh, and then I get it. I'm like, well, I'm not Josh. I'm Troy. No. So it's really cool. It's got the auto. The auto is authenticated via PSA. There is no grade on the card. It's just the authentic auto. Now, what to me stands out is I've never seen this before, and Josh, maybe you have. Maybe this is someone can educate me. On the PSA slab, it doesn't have what year or what the card is. It just says trading card. And I don't think I've ever seen that. And then I thought, well, maybe if you don't get the card graded, back then they didn't put it. I don't know how old. Well, this looks like a newer slab. Definitely a newer number. So I always thought that was pretty interesting, but it is a 1987-88 tops.
I think they only had the auto authenticated, not the card.
Yeah, so maybe that's why that's probably why it just says trading card. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but definitely cool. Great picture. He's got those old brown pillowcases for pads. Just looks like a goalie from the mid 80s. Right now,
it's not even a trading card; it's a sticker.
Yeah, it's a sticker. And right now it's at $6, so bid away if you want. If you want to, I'm gonna throw a bid on it. So we'll see.
Well, way to announce that to everybody.
Well, I don't care.
If you want to go beat the dog snot out of Troy and pump up his bids. All right. Well. On the more modern side, there's a couple of cards that really stood out to me that I wanted to review quick. The first one is a 2019 SP Authentic Retro Future Watch out of 249. I think it's a 99 retro. It's not a Future Watch auto. It's just a Future Watch, but it is a lower numbered Cale Makar BGS 8.5. If you're a fan of 90s like inserts or 90s retro designs. I think this is one, Troy, that half the people that see it will love it. The other half the people probably won't care for it as much. But I think it's an interesting, unique Makar that you can get on pretty cheap. Last one sold raw on eBay on January 3rd for about $147 US. Then there's a couple, I think, pretty decently big cards in the weekly auction. So there's a 2020 Skybox Metal Universe Connor McDavid 97 Retro Red PMG out of 100, BGS 8.5. Of course, the 97 Retro PMGs in last year's Skybox Metal were the big chases. To me, Troy, this is a good market barometer card for not just PMGs, but for the hockey hobby, just one of those little indicators to see kind of where we stand. What really stands out to me, though, is not as much the card. This is where I really appreciate the amount of energy and effort that PWCC puts into their images in having high-res images and perfect lighting where you can zoom in to, because with these PMGs, of course, there's issues on all of them, right? There's hardly any 10s or gem mint cards. And so when you can look at a card like this and see every bit of detail, I think it gives you a lot of confidence to maybe place a bid on. Most recent sale was a PSA 8 for this card that sold for $1,356 US at the end of November. So BGS 8.5, PSA 8. We'll kind of see how it ends up there. And then the last one is a 2020 Upper Deck Kirill Kaprizov Young Guns exclusives out of 100 PSA 9. What stands out to me about this one in particular is since his Young Gun base PSA 10 has the fourth highest pop count for any hockey card of all time, to me, Trey, it makes the exclusives that much more valuable if you're a Kaprizov guy. So again, to see kind of where his market is, where the hockey card market is, it'll be interesting to see where this one lands. But what stood out to me the most was in doing the research, how all over the board prices have been on this card. So there's 3 recent sales for one of the exclusives out of 100 PSA 9, all in November, right? The last sale was on November 28th for $1,140 US. The sale prior to that, 11 days before, was for $3,376 US. And then about a week before that, one went for $1,974.
Are these all eBay sales?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm curious. That 3,300 one seems suspicious, but I have no idea where the marketplace was or where it happened. But yeah, that's kind of neat, or not neat, but kind of interesting.
Good luck comping it.
Yeah, have fun.
Right. Another little bit of context is the last PSA 10 of his exclusive sold for $5,895 US on November 5th. So I think, long story short, if you can pick one of this card up in the $1,500 or so range, and it's a quarter of what a PSA 10 the last cost would be, it seems like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it right now, and I also see there's a PSA 10 clear cut Young Guns out there.
I saw that
same
too,
auction
for Kaprizov.
But I'm done with Kaprizov Young Guns. Every time I look at it, I get like PTSD.
Well, I was thinking of when the last sale on the exclusives PSA 9 went for $1,140. That's like barely more than he paid for his.
I know, is that crazy?
Quick note on these PWCC weekly auctions too. We've been typically previewing them here on the podcast. We are doing now weekly auction wrap-ups on Instagram and Facebook, showing the cards, the top kind of sales from it. So if you're interested to see what these cards go for, that would be a good place to check out. Otherwise, you can look on the PWCC site as well. Last note on PWCC is the premiere auction, which I'm pretty excited. I think drops today, as in January 5, the day the episode, this episode drops. So I'm excited to dig into that for Monday's show. All right, Troy, let's roll into some hobby news. Really quickly on the NHL injury front. So the Blues, your guy, Troy, Ryan O'Reilly, got a few of his cards.
I do.
Come in every pack.
I think every insert I ever pull is Ryan O'Reilly.
Him and Tarasenko were both placed on injured reserve. O'Reilly could miss, I believe, 4 or 6 weeks, and I think Tarasenko might be 4 weeks, or I might have those mixed up. But both, unfortunately, for the Blues, placed on the injured reserve. Only real big injury update. Next, I want to chat a little bit about, so did you watch the Winter Classic?
I didn't watch the game. I did see like some of the preview stuff, and I did watch the condensed game of it. So I do have some thoughts.
Yeah, I still have Winter Classic PTSD from last year in the
wild hype, and they just go out and lay up. I don't think they got shut out, but they played brutal.
It was so brutal. It was like we we got punched in the face repeatedly for 2 straight hours. And after all the, you were right. After all the hype and the anticipation, they like us. They're putting the Winter Classic in Minnesota, and we literally just crapped the bed. It was so bad. I thought it was a pretty fun game. I guess it was nice to see the Bruins get a win at Fenway Park. A really exciting finish, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there's a goal scored by Pittsburgh, a second too late or something like that.
But the ref was on that, and I saw it. I mean, the ref was on it. He's like, nope, no way was that in before it crossed.
For me, that's like maybe the one little hockey card tie-in is I was really digging the Pittsburgh uniforms.
Yep.
I think if I remember correctly, they're like an homage to the Pirates, right? Definitely have like the yellow helmets, and I would be pretty excited to see maybe like some cool Crosby cards in the next year or so coming from the Winter Classic. But what's your thoughts?
So I just listed out like my bullet point thoughts off the top of my head. I love the unis. I like both unis. And I thought the getting off the bus in the baseball unis was kind of cheesy. I get it, but I thought it was cheesy as all get out, but it was kind of interesting. The game itself, now again, I just watched the condensed game and looked fantastic. Great game, good goalie battle finally. One thing I noticed watching the condensed game, and I don't know if it was like this on TV, the sound was awesome. Like they must have had some really good mics or close mics because you heard everything. Like even little dump-ins that hit the pads, it was just like thud, thud. Like it sounded fantastic. So I wonder if that's how it was on TV as well, because it was great. And then, what did I say? Loved Allmark's. I love his celebration when he raises both arms up and he leans back. It's like one of the coolest goalie celebrations going. And he did it right after that disallowed goal went in, and they almost fell over when his team bum rushed him. And then finally, another great thing about the game, we had an e-bug sighting for Pittsburgh. So their emergency backup goalie got called up to be on the bench. He didn't get in the game, but they needed him to be there just in case.
Wouldn't that have been wild to have him go in the game?
There is
to go in the game.
Yeah, there's nothing going off on a tangent. There's nothing better in sports for me than when an emergency backup goalie goes into a hockey game. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this guy might have played hockey, back when he was the juniors. Now he's been out for 10 years, but he's at the rink and he practices with the team every once in a while. And they bring him out and he gets in the game. It is the greatest thing. And then when they play awesome, that just takes it to a whole nother level. They get on SportsCenter. They're usually always the number one star. I love that stuff.
I guess another thing that stood out to me, really, as I guess maybe a last thought, is how into it the players were. I really appreciated that. Like the Boston guys were jumping up and down at the end of the game on the bench, and everyone can get jaded in professional sports at times, but I thought it was really cool to see that.
Yeah, I don't know the weather looked decent. I mean, I love it when the sun's out, it wasn't too bad where it was like glare. I don't know what the temperature was, but I can see when it's freezing cold just being miserable out there, but it looked like both teams were in it. It looked like great sheet of ice. Did you see where the next one is?
Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I'm intrigued because I don't know where it's at. I'm guessing, is it at the Seahawks or the Mariners stadium?
Mariners. So it's in Seattle, and they're playing the Golden Knights.
Yeah.
To me, and I don't mean this as a negative, it just reeks of a marketing move to try to create interest in new markets for the NHL.
Well, I'm guessing it was kind of an agreement with the Kraken. Like, you buy a franchise, the owners, you'll get the Winter Classic. That's how I look at it. I think it'll be interesting, though. I mean, Seattle's a great city, great backdrop. I mean, if you've ever seen where those arenas or those stadiums sit in the city, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're right next to each other, the football stadium and the baseball stadium. Okay, let's move on to the Connor Bedard Championships. I mean, the World Junior Championships. So we're recording this during the U.S.-Canada game. Do you have an update, Troy?
My God, I am about to have a heart attack. So the score right now, USA was up 2-1 after one. Now it's 3-2 Canada, but then it changed to 3-3. So I was like, all right, good. Now it looks like that goal might have got taken off the board. So now it's 3-2 again, Canada. So we're at 3-2, second period. I'm not sure how much time. Again, I don't have video. I'm just watching like the live blog or the Game Center version. So
does Connor Bedard have all 5 goals somehow?
He's got one for sure.
What happened in Czechia, Sweden? That was going on right as we started recording, I think.
I don't even know. I didn't even look at that.
Okay. That was the other semifinal. So we'll give any other live updates. I mean, I guess they're only live for us, but for our entertainment, at the very least, we might mention a couple other live updates throughout the show. I was
going to say, I did get confirmation. They took the goal off the board.
Must be Canadian refs, huh?
Well, it's in Canada, right? I don't know. I thought that if you asked me who's going to win this game going in, I would have said the U.S., but it looks like this is going to end up being like one of those great games, like a barn burner.
Crazy. Well, we mentioned Bedard last show, and prior to today, he had 21 points in 5 games, which apparently is pretty good. Not really much to talk about since the games are going on right now. But, Troy, something did happen today that got me thinking, kind of obsessed with this. So I'm going to run a thought exercise by you. Okay. So Gongshow supporter Thaddeus Stewart mentioned in the Gongshow Discord server, which you get access to by supporting us by Patreon, mentioned that he's worried that his team, the Edmonton Oilers, have you ever heard of them?
I have.
Okay. That they're not going to make the playoffs. So it's kind of early for this talk, but the Oilers are currently in the last wild card spot for the Western Conference, with the Colorado Avalanche, Troy, nipping at their heels.
I never thought we'd say that. The Avalanche nipping at their heels to get in for the wild card. That's crazy.
Yeah. So I want to pretend for a minute that tragedy strikes and there's no Connor McDonough and his trusty sidekick in the playoffs. Actually, Troy, you might want to put on your tinfoil hat for a sec. Probably use a chin strap too.
Keep it on.
You might want to keep this on. Let's pretend for a minute Edmonton doesn't make the playoffs, which puts them into the NHL draft lottery. And by some magical happenstance, it comes up deuces for them, and they get the number 1 overall pick. You following me so far?
I gotcha.
What that would mean. So now we have Connor McDavid and Connor Bedard as the Connor connection. I have a whole bunch of questions about this.
Okay.
That I can't wait to get here.
I'm ready.
If, let's just say, by some crazy circumstance, the Oilers land Bedard, which team's fans storm the NHL offices first and burn it down?
Blackhawks.
Yeah. No, don't burn down the NHL offices. We're talking about hypothetically.
Yeah, don't burn down the offices. But listen, the Blackhawks, I've said it from the preseason. I think they're going to be the ones tanking for Bedard. Every media person in the world thinks they're tanking for Bedard. Now they are officially tanking. They got 20 points on the season, but we'll see what happens going forward. But I think their fan base is kind of hoping for Bedard, and I don't know what the actual odds are. If you get last place, what percentage of whatever ping pong balls you get, but that would be very interesting. So I'll say the Blackhawks would burn the NHL offices down first.
Again, somehow the Oilers miss the playoffs. They magically get the number 1 pick. They select Bedard a year from today. So halfway through next season, who's the center of Edmonton's first line?
I'd say still McDavid.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think, too, this would become the ultimate sign of loyalty or maybe betrayal, depending on what line Draisaitl would choose to take his talents to?
He would go with McDavid. You ever watch those two play? They know exactly where they're at. They're like same brain. He's staying with McDavid.
I was had these what I don't know, what do you call them, daydreams of the TV show The Bachelor. This will be on a made for reality.
Rose. Here's your rose.
The rose. And he said, "I choose your line." Isn't that wild to think about though? If people would lose their minds.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. I didn't. You probably looked at this. You might not. Are there any certain stipulations around if the Oilers didn't get I don't know what rules go into effect with draft lotteries, and if you've had a number 1 pick in the last 2 years, I don't even know what the Oilers have.
I didn't get that far. I just know that 16 teams make the playoffs, and if you're not in the top 3 in your division, there's 2 wildcard spots for the conference, and every team that's not in the playoffs is in the NHL draft lottery.
That's what I would assume. All right, so that would be very, very intriguing. Little hypotheticals.
Okay,
I love it.
Take your tinfoil hat off. I guess this Hobby News Today brought to you by Peyote. Going down the rabbit hole of McDavid, and I just think people would never trust the NHL again.
Are you thinking the frozen envelope with the NBA?
Oh yeah. All right, switching gears to new product releases. Really quickly on Skybox Metal, as you know, that was pushed to January 11th. I heard through the grapevine, Troy, that the winter storms sweeping across North America are the reason for the delay. So thanks, winter, for making us wait an extra week for our PMGs. Other little bit of news, the new product releases is Upper Deck announced that in June or so that they're going to be releasing 2022-23 Parkhurst Champions Hobby. So we talked, I think, in the last Hockey Cards 101 about Parkhurst being retail exclusive. That didn't last real long.
Nope.
Now they're coming back with Hobby. It is, we'll talk a little bit, it is a little bit, I think a lot of people had a similar reaction in that, boy, you're so far behind. Why are you coming out with any new sets at this point? Just seems to make the problem a little bit worse. I know that's kind of the thought you had, right?
Well, yeah, and I say I'm not opposed to the new sets, but I think kind of what I would do, and obviously I'm not in charge. I'm not smart enough to be in charge of Upper Deck, but current season, I'm fine with coming out with their flagship product, right? Series 1, 2 extended. SPA Authentic, because that gets you your future watches, and then maybe the cup. Besides that, get your backlog in order before you come out with new whatever current season you're in product, like Parkhurst. I think, we saw the comments. I think a lot of people are like, okay, that's great, but when's this other stuff coming that's backlogged, 12 months.
Well, there's two primary comments. The first one was what you just said. People are like, wait a minute, we're so far behind. But then the second one was, but this kind of looks awesome. And that's sort of the feedback that I had too. A couple of the inserts that they showed, I'm like, on. But there's, I think, a lot to like in at least what we're seeing so far in the upcoming Parkhurst champions. So it's a hobby again. I really, really like, did you see the 51, 52 like Parkhurst retros?
Yeah.
Especially the autos. I think that Matt Boldy and Gretzky are like their examples of a rookie auto and then of a legendary auto. So the rookies are 1 in 360 packs, and then they have a pretty exclusive red parallel out of 5. The legends are super tough, and that's where they showed the Gretzky. 1 and out of 1,920 packs. Again, with the out of 5 red parallel. Right now, pre-sales like in the US on Dave & Adams is $120. It's a hobby box with 20 packs, 8 cards per pack. You get 1 autograph or memorabilia card per box, 4 base set rainbow parallel cards, 7 insert cards, 2 base set color variations, and 1 additional hit. So a pretty decent price point for what I think will be interesting. And those retros are going to be a big chase, but I don't know. I'm pretty digging them.
Yeah, I don't mind the design. I still hold to my let's get the backlog kind of fixed. And just to give you an update, it's 4-2 Canada now.
Oh boy, well, there goes that dream. But I don't know. It's still second period, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There's time for it. For the second time, we want to do a little bit of a social media roundup segment. So this is where we take. We do spend a lot of time. Like on a show, on our social media, post usually multiple times per day, try to do a lot of researched information, and ended up doing in the last couple of weeks a lot of look backs at 2022 and kind of ranking basically like top player sales or other ways to look at, I guess, where the interest was in 2022 in the hobby. And so there's kind of 4 areas we wanted to review as a part of that. And the first one is, and we do this every month, if you're familiar with our Facebook or Instagram, we looked at the December 22, the top 25 player sales via secondary markets. And we use a card ladder sales history for this. Basically what we're saying is that it's not what the card sold for, but who sold the most cards, what players, whether it be Wayne Gretzky or Kirill Kaprizov or Connor McDavid, who it is. And we've been doing this, I think, since August. So for the last 6 months now, and people can look back at those and get a sense of the trends. We like Card Ladder because they use so many sources for their data, right? There's never going to be a perfect list of sales because there's private sales. There's a million different small auction sites that exist online. But Card Ladder probably has one of the more comprehensive sales databases that goes back for a long time too. So they'll look at eBay and PWCC and Golden and Heritage and Leland's and all the big auction houses. And I don't know, Troy, it's like a dozen or more different sources. So it's a pretty comprehensive look at it. So again, this is a top 25 list. I'm not going to go through all 25, but just from a highlight perspective. So in December, the player with the most sales was Wayne Gretzky, who for the last 6 months has had the most sales. He had 3,117 cards sold, almost double number 2 with McDavid, who had 1,673 cards sold. Rounding out the top 5 were Ovechkin with 1,663, J-Rob with 1,442, and Sidney Crosby with 1,139. So again, this is a top 25 list. The biggest riser was Tage Thompson, who went from unranked in November. Well, he's been just completely on fire since the month of December, to number 9 in December with 780 cards sold in the month of December, so up 17 spots. Steepest fall, Troy, is your guy Mo Sider, who fell 7 spots from November to December down to 21 with 495 cards sold. So that's a quick look at December and who people were chasing the most last month. Kind of pairs nicely with, we did also look back at all of 2022. And didn't you top 25 did a top 10 list for 2022? Number 1, not a big surprise, Wayne Gretzky, who sold 47,314 cards for the year. Connor McDavid at 21,040, so again, less than half of Wayne Gretzky. And then Alexander Ovechkin, about 17,000 cards. Sidney Crosby, 15. Kirill Kaprizov, tried number 5. Most player with the most sales in 2022 at 13,632. Then Patrick Waugh, 6th most sales of any hockey player at 13,140. Then Mario Lemieux at 12,270. Austin Matthews, number 8, 10,800. Cale Makar, number 9, 10,700. Now, what's interesting about Cale Makar, and I'm going to end up doing a social post because in the research, one of the things that I found is if you separate 2022 in halves for Cale Makar. It's really the story of two halves.
It's like 80% in the first half and 20% in the second half.
It's honestly like 75%,
Yeah,
60,
sure,
70, 75% of his sales. And we mentioned this a little bit in the last couple episodes, I think, that I don't want to say the star has faded, but you just don't hear him as much anymore. And the team's struggling a little bit. He's not putting up the ridiculous numbers this year. That could all change. They could go on a run and go deep in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he could be amazing. It doesn't change the player he is, but boy, it was all Cale Makar at the end of last year, and you just don't hear about it a lot this year. So rounding out the top 10, number 10 is Cole Caulfield, Troy. 10,566 cards. What people have mentioned about that, which I hadn't thought about, but is really interesting, is he doesn't have a ton of cards yet.
No.
So, I mean, Wayne Gretzky, right, with 47,000 sales, or even McDavid at 21,000, there's lots of different cards because, Gretzky played for a long time. McDavid's played for 7 years now or so. And so what's Caulfield been in? Maybe, 4 or 5 releases. And so to have 10,500 sales last year is pretty impressive. Anything jump out on the list to you?
Patrick Watt's 6 was kind of surprising, but more I sit here and think about it, kind of makes sense. I mean, one of the, if not the greatest goalie, one of the greatest goalies ever. So I'm just happy to see a goalie in the top 10.
He's pretty high on the list every month.
Yeah.
So and pretty consistently. So yeah, if you want to collect a goalie, that's not a bad place to start. So another thing we looked at for the year in all of 2022 is Young Guns sold. I don't know if you're looking, but any guess how many Young Guns were sold last year?
I already cheated. I'm just staring straight at it.
204,106 Young Guns sold in 2022. Again, based on the Card Ladder sales history. That's an average, Troy, of 559 Young Guns a day, or 17,009 per month.
I feel I'd have been so far under on my guess. Just looking at those numbers.
Really?
Yeah, I think I would have been way low.
So the biggest month was March of 2022 with 22,454 Young Guns sold. Now, a couple of points of context for last March. After numerous delays, this is when 2021 Upper Deck Series 1 was released. So that could factor in part of it. And then you're, of course, gearing up towards the end of the season and playoffs. So I just don't want people to think that March is out necessarily the top month of the year always for Young Guns. You have to look at this probably over a multiple year period. Interesting then, the smallest month was the month before, February, 13,959. Now, it was also 28 days in February. And by that time, there hadn't been a new flagship series that had been released in a while. But it's kind of interesting that the smallest and biggest months were back-to-back last year. Last thing I want to look at in our social media roundup is I thought it'd be kind of interesting we do, like I said, typically 3 to 4 social posts a day, and sort of look at over the last 100 or so posts and see what people are engaging with and responding to the most. And one of the things that we've been doing, Troy, is a top 2022 hockey card sales by different card types or genres or players. And it was this type of post that was actually our top 3 posts over the last month. So our number 1 post as far as comments and likes and shares and just overall engagement were the top PMG sales for 2022. Number 2 was the top monumental patches sales for top 2022. And then the third biggest post of ours was the top Young Guns high gloss sales for 2022. So I guess the moral of the story is it turns out collectors like really cool cards.
They do like really cool cards. I feel bad that I don't like PMGs now.
Ooh. Yeah, you're a snowflake.
I am.
Okay, we want to end the show with Mailbag. We've got a big bag of questions.
We say end the show, but it might be like an hour later. We're like, and question 36. No, it won't go that long, people, if you're worried.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Really great questions again, and we love the participation. I always panic that nobody's going to ask a question every time I throw it out there on Discord or social media. And so we'll dig right into it. Like I said, there's some good ones to answer for this Thursday show. So our good buddy from the Gongshow Discord, 419 Sports Guy, says, looking at the rate of grading per month per company, do you think the commonality of PSA slabs will eventually hurt their value? More so, will other slabs, which have lower pop counts, be more valuable? So 419, I kind of think that actually having more slabs in PSA probably helps their value more than it hurts it, because in marketing, we use the word herd mentality. People get fearful when they're off on their own and they're kind of going against the grain, where if all the big or most valuable cards are in one slab. It's just going to, I think, build a little bit more confidence in the general collector that if I put my card in a PSA slab, that not only will it be probably easiest to liquidate, but have the most potential to go up in value in the future. Doesn't mean I love PSA. I think that's just the advantage of being the number one and most used grader. You have thoughts on that, Trey?
Yeah, I agree. I kind of was just like, well, it's always who's the king, right? From the value perspective, that they're going to get the most slabs. So I don't see it being a negative. I was trying to think back, BGS used to be king, right? Before PSA kind of overtook. And do I think all the BGS slabs out there hurt the value of BGS? No, I think BGS's reputation of grading might hurt them now. Seems like, if anything, but I don't think the number of slabs hurts them.
419 also asked, thoughts on SGC and CSG having quite the increase in December for hockey cards? My answer to that, 419, is that both companies have been working really hard and been very aggressive with not only pricing, but partnerships. So the CSG partnership with eBay, of course, is going to do a lot to increase their brand awareness. And you do partnerships like that for brand credibility, right? So that if eBay is effectively endorsing CSG as a top grading company, and that will translate to the collector. On the flip side, CSG is partnering with lots of different companies like PWCC and others, and you're going to have a similar effect there. And, and they better slabs, faster turnaround. And I just think they're starting to see more results. Anything to add to that, Trey?
No, I've been waiting for the SGC numbers to kind of pop more because they've been at that quick turnaround time. I don't know, for a while now, where it was like 7 business days, and in reality, it's probably a little bit quicker than that. I was curious to see when they would start popping, and now we're seeing SGC and CSG get more traction, which makes sense.
Turnaround time for me personally is a big deal. Yeah. And that scares me away from PSA at times, where I don't want to wait 2 months.
Well, PSA just released a video today. They're doing, their CEO came out with a video on what their new grading prices levels in 2023 are. So it's funny. I don't know if they've done that in the past, but I just remember SGC started with their, president, CEO doing that. So I don't know if PSA is kind of reading off that, or if PSA has done it in the past and SGC kind of stole that. But it's interesting. It's definitely a grading war going on.
Okay, next question again from the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord. Spencer asked, how much of an impact do special events like the Winter Classic just held have on collectability, card value? For example, were you wild diehards looking for all cards with the 2022 Winter Classic and photos? I know you have a response. I'll just say, as a Wild fan, Spencer, we want to forget the last year's Winter Classic more than anything. Yeah, don't want to be reminded of it.
Yeah, that kind of taints our view, but just me personally, I think they're very cool and they have a place for collectors who PC certain items. To me personally, I don't really swing one way or the other on this. I guess if it was a really cool patch maybe that got into a card from a game used jersey, that I think I would see some value and I would probably want to get, but besides that, I don't have a real strong opinion on this.
All right, we'll move on to Instagram. Just Hockey Cards asks, what present low-cost cards do you think are a safe bet for long-term investment? It's a good question, Just Hockey Cards, but to me, it's kind of funny when I think of like safe and bet in the little antithetical in nature, right? But I guess to answer your question, I would lean to very young players who are like maybe 19, 20, 21 years old that have a goal scoring pedigree. So scored a lot in the juniors and college, as far as the data will go, right? That establishes that wherever they're at, they tend to produce on the goals end, because we've talked about assist machines, while great hockey players do not typically drive a lot of hobby value. And then try to find these guys that also haven't had their breakout NHL season, where you can get probably their young guns on the cheap end, raw, buy a bunch of them, grade them, and hopefully flip when these guys take off. I know it's a little bit of a maybe investing or flipping question, so kind of trying to answer it from that perspective. I would spread my bets out around multiple players. I don't think if you're trying to make money, to go all in on one guy is very high risk. So I guess to me, that's the safest strategy. And if you want particular names, these are guys like Dawson Mercer, Seth Jarvis, Anton Lundell, Cole Perfetti. These kind of guys. Well, I'm sure there'll be a couple of them in 2022.
I was going to say this is a good plug for the previous episode, where you kind of walk through some of your criteria on guys that you look for.
Yep. So go back, listen to that too, I guess. All right, Instagram, Top Shelf Cookie Sniper 88. What team is your biggest surprise for wins, and who is the most disappointing team? You want to go first, Troy?
Yeah, I'm very quick on this. Most surprising to me is Boston. no one in their right mind could tell me that Boston's going to have 4 losses on January 4th. I actually went back and I looked at Stanley Cup predictions by The Athletic. I think 0% of their writers had them like making the cup or winning the cup. So I think to me, Boston by far is the biggest surprise. Biggest disappointment, I actually agree with, or we had Thaddeus saying about Edmonton. I agree. I thought Edmonton, this was the year they're coming out flying. They got Campbell and Net. They're ready to go. And it's just total disappointment to me.
I'm a little shocked that we have all different teams. Usually we're very close and typically tend to have the same predictions.
Well, it could be the Wild because they stunk at the beginning and now they're world beaters. So who knows?
So for me, the biggest surprise is Seattle, who's in the playoffs right now, which, and again, not that you didn't have very, very good choices too. I just, being a second year team, and not having a huge amount of talent, that they seem to be getting the most out of what they have right now. And then on the disappointing side, I had to put the Avalanche.
Yeah,
right now,
Avalanche. I could get on board with that one too.
Okay, another Instagram question from Slick Rick Sports Cards. Who is the greatest Maple Leaf, and what is your favorite card of theirs? All right, I'll go. So I'm certainly not a Maple Leafs diehard fan, so I don't know if I'm qualified to say who the greatest is, or maybe I'll give you my favorite, and that's Matt Sundin. I remember him very vividly as a kid. This dates us, of course, we talked about it before, but there wasn't a lot of, here in the U.S., it was hard to watch hockey when we were growing up, and so most of my knowledge of players actually came through cards, not through watching the games. And I remember him, 1990 put me right in the sweet spot of my collecting age, and remember his rookies pretty vividly. My favorite one of his rookies is the 1990 OPG Premier. Always loved that set, number one. And secondly, I think maybe even a little more common card would be his Upper Deck rookie. But I've never been as big of a fan of the portrait cards as I am of, more like the shots of whether it be in action or just a guy on the ice. So I always kind of lean towards those cards over the portraits, and that's why I'm a big fan of the 1990 Matt Sundin OPG Premier.
Nice. You definitely went way more down this than I did, because when I saw this question, I was like, man, I don't know anything about the Maple Leafs. Obviously, I know with like Austin Matthews and some of the current players, but so I cheated and looked up who the greatest Maple Leaf of all time is, and a lot of listed Dave Keon. 1,296 games played, 986 points total, so I'll go with that. However, if we want to go my favorite Maple Leaf player, I would say Felix Potvin, because I loved goalies and I love Felix the Cat. I thought he was sweet, so that would be my favorite.
All right, another question. What's the most undervalued pre-vintage 1980 Hall of Famer rookie card? So I probably would have said until November or the 1978 OPG Mike Bosley PSA 10, but it sold for, I think the high sale at that point was like $19,000 and went up huge to $43,000 US.
Yeah, that sale just depressed me, because it's like, well, guess I could scratch that one off the list for a while.
Mm-hmm. Might even be a little bit more underappreciated. As we've talked before, I don't like using the term undervalued, because value, it's a market, and the value is what the value is, right? But to me, I think underappreciated is a little bit more of an accurate term. What I think, though, that sale did is it really shined a light on the 1971 Guy Lafleur OPG PSA 10 Pop 6, whose all-time high currently is $31,000 US. I believe a friend of our show, David Chow, maybe owns one of these cards too. But it seems like that's whether you want to call it undervalued or underappreciated, that at $31,000 US for that card is amazing. It's one of my favorite cards ever. That's probably one that I would pick for pre-1980. Do you have anything?
Nope, I'm on board exactly with what you said.
Okay, next question. What do you think of Ultimate Threads Numbered? So I think that he's referring to the Ultimate Collection Debut Threads cards. These are RPAs. Personally, I'm a pretty big fan of them. For rookie RPAs, they're a lot less of an investment than for a McDavid, Crosby, or Ovechkin than you would get with the cup. I think though, Troy, with any RPA, it comes down really to the quality of the patch. And I did spend a little bit of time based on this question going through Card Ladder sales history today. And this is one of those sets where you'll have napkin patch kind of jersey swatch, and then really, really nice 3-color patches that include part of the logo. And one of the things though, that these scenarios make me nervous, right? Because, and I know that they're legitimate in many cases, but if I'm buying a card that is beautiful patch and there's other similar cards from that set that are one color kind of napkin patches, I don't know if I can pull the trigger at that point, or I'm doing a lot of research on it and to make sure that it's legit and the patch hasn't been altered before I buy it.
Yeah, the whole fake patch thing has just kind of changed my viewpoint on patches. And I don't want to become like a worrywart the whole time, but I agree. Do your research on these. They're definitely cool cards, but do your research.
All right, next question from Lantern Cards on Instagram. Why is a raw McDavid Seismic Gold rookie on eBay going for right now almost twice the price of its last BGS 8.5 comp, which was $3,480? So I did look this up. I did find one raw 2015 McDavid Seismic Gold currently on eBay auction that's at $6,100. It's when I checked this morning. About 4 days left in the auction. So it is quite a bit more than the BGS 8.5 comp of roughly $3,500 US. I could think of 3 reasons, Lantern, why the raw is going for more than the 8.5. First of all, the BGS 8.5 comp was last August, which is pretty much I need help here, Troy. It's I want to say like the lowest point of the off-season dip. And the words that come to me are like apex, but that's counterintuitive, right? Can't be the height of the dip, right? So what do you say?
The trench? I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, the trench, the bottom of the trench. For the off-season dip, probably the worst time to sell that card. So that might have affected why it went for $3,480. The second reason is since August, he's played out of his mind halfway through the season. So you would hope and expect that maybe a little bit of a value bump there. And then the third thing is, there's the gem mint fantasy with any rocker, right? At BGS 8.5, it is what it is at that point. It's already been graded. It's an 8.5. Unless you think you can crack it and resubmit it, it's not going to change. Where in the back of the mind of most people that buy raw cards, I think that they assume that, this has a chance to be a 10. And so you're going to get a little bit more value because of that. I don't know, anything to add there, Troy?
No, I was trying to think about the whole, in the past, we've always thought like a PSA 8 is equal to the raw is what we thought. And then we saw those weird pricing anomalies where it's almost like PSA 9s, like raws were going for PSA 9 values. So I was trying to think about something around there, but no, I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Okay, next question is from HOF Hockey Cards on Instagram. Thoughts on pre-NHL card values, current and long-term, for stars or prospects, i.e. like a CHL card? You want to go answer this one first?
Yeah, I just said I'm not a big fan of pre-NHL cards. I think they have a place. Obviously, this kind of answer is coming up a lot. If you PC players, I think they have a place. And if you want to get every type of card of them, go for it. However, I don't put much stock in them, and I think you'll get into more of the value perspective on the cards, but personally, I'd rather have the NHL card than the AHL or CHL card.
I do prefer the NHL jersey cards too, personally. I do think, though, there can be a decent market for pre-NHL jersey cards. So if you think of like a Connor Bedard or Shane Wright, who have a lot of hype, you got to get into it early, though, and cheap. And to me, Troy, you got to sell them before their Young Guns comes out, because that's going to be the chase once they have that Young Guns card. And so, but you think of like a guy like Bedard, who it's going to be a year or so before realistically there's a Young Guns. So between now and then, you might be able to do decently well on some of his cards, with all the hype that's just going to build and build and build. All right, next question is from Instagram. Robin Lindstrom Collects. What do you guys think about Kurashev? I feel like this guy will make it, whether it's in Chicago or elsewhere. Okay, Troy, I know you got to answer for this one.
Yeah, Kurashev. So to be honest, I have not watched a lot of Kurashev or the Blackhawks this season, but I can always do research, and it seems like his start to his career has been a little slow. However, right now it looks like he's on pace for 32 points, which would be a career high for him, which I guess is saying something given the overall feeling around the league, and the Blackhawks are in full tank mode. He definitely has skill. I was reading a bunch of media reports. They seem that he's like languishing on the third line role right now, sometimes fourth line, which really isn't a rip on him. He's actually doing what they ask him. He can play winger center, and a lot of the media guys were saying he's pretty good defensively, even if his defensive metrics might not show it. But it's one of these curious cases where is there more in him? And there's been a lot of push by pundits to see him in a top 6 role, which I think is getting to this listener's question. So there's obviously some skill there that they're seeing. Now, will a GM or a management team that's tanking let that happen? Probably not. If they're straight up going for Bedard, they're not going to put him in a role to score more goals and get more wins. That's the tinfoil hat view. But that's what I think on Kurashev, just from what I had to read on him. Definitely looks like there's some stuff there. I just think this season you're not going to see it.
All right, next question. Instagram, Jay Johnson of 94. How do you go about pricing a card to sell with minimal comps due to odds, rarity, or popularity? All right, Troy, I know you took this one.
Yeah,
too.
these are always tough. They're kind of fun though when you get them to look up, and we've had people kind of write in at times and ask, and we kind of walk them through this process. But if you can absolutely find zero comps for the exact card, you just basically have to start widening your search out. So I said, let's say for example, you have an OPG Platinum Emerald Surge out of 10 of some player, and you can't find a comp for that specific card. There are things you can do. You can find a sale of the same type of card from the current year, but another player of a similar stature. So try to kind of see if you can find another Emerald Surge that 10 out of 10 that's sold, and is the player on that card comparable to the player that you're looking for. So that could be a start. You could also find a recent comp of the same card for the player, but from a prior year. So if you could find that same exact card, but a previous year, maybe that's a way to start. Or if you can find any out of 10 card for that player and just get yourself a little baseline from over the past couple of years. That's what you're going to have to do. You're just going to have to start with like benchmarks on different cards, players, and then use all that information to get you to what you think your number should be. Josh, any other info?
I thought that was a great answer. Maybe I'll just chime in and say this is an opportunity to plug Card Ladder, which we use a lot, and where I think Card Ladder can become relevant in situations like this, and there is a link in description if you want to sign up and support our show, it's that their sales history goes back so far. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at a Ovechkin or Crosby rookie for maybe a lesser known set where there's a low numbered, and where eBay sales history 130 point only has a 90-day look back window, or if you use TerraPeak through eBay a year, having the ability to look back 18 months or 2 years can be really valuable. And then just like you said, it's comp is comparable, right? So you have to think, well, what's the most comparable? Do I find a similar player out of low number from the same set? Or if it's a Ovechkin out of 10 and they don't have this particular set, what do Ovechkin out of 10 cards typically go for? And you just have to, it's just to find some sort of approximate value amount.
Yeah, I was thinking too, maybe this is the most, you could, if you had the card, maybe you found a sale from 3 years ago, and you could maybe use the Card Ladder Hockey Index and see what the yearly growth rate is per year to maybe kind of ballpark it too. That's going to be wildly inaccurate at times, but it might get you there or help you a little bit too.
Well, the further you get from 25 sales for the same amount yesterday to one sale that happened 3 years ago, it's the more subjectivity that's going to enter into the equation, right? And from both in more flexibility, you're probably going to have whether you're a buyer or a seller of that card. All right, next one is from Rimpy Rips on Instagram. Will SP Authentic make better inserts other than Future Watch Autos? Troy.
I actually love this question because this just gets it's a totally subjective, right? So the user asking, will SP Authentic make better inserts than Future Watch? And someone else might be like, well, I think they're great. I love everything SPA puts out. But again, I love it. Subjective. But let's try to answer it. I actually got off track with this question because I was like, what? Future Watch Autos? I consider those autographs, but they're inserts, right? I mean, they're inserted into the packs. They're the big chase in the product. We do know from the 21-22 SP Authentic design preview that was released, I don't know how long ago, a couple months ago, that there are, Upper Deck is trying things. There are new inserts coming out. So there's the pageantry inserts, which highlight top, past, present, and future stars. Some of those cards are going to have autographs. There are going to be SP top rookie insert cards, and they're going to have different versions of those, blue, green. And then also it looks like they're going to have SP holo foils, which will be a bigger chase. It looks like one out of every 160 packs. And these are cards that have players against a hologram backdrop, which I'm not sure I know exactly what that means. When I think of hologram, I think of that Stanley Cup Pro Set card we saw.
Yeah.
It's got the hologram. So maybe it could look cool if that's what they are.
Oh, no, you know what I bet that means? So think of the 2022 Series 1, rookie retrospective cards.
Oh, gotcha.
There's a little bit of hologram in the back of that, right?
Yep. And then there's also SP die cuts, which I think are new as well. So let's think. I think I just went through 4 new inserts that are going to be in the new SP Authentic. So they're definitely, I don't know which ones are coming out, but I think Upper Deck has probably listened to feedback. And they're going to try some new things in the insert card game to see if they can get traction on any of these. At the end of the day, Future Watch Autos are still the most important cards that come out of SP Authentic. We've kind of talked about this in past episodes of how it's one of the top, 3 flagship cards out there for a player.
Yeah.
So That's what I would say.
I think I agree with you. I think that they are listening, but in getting to know Upper Deck a little bit and talking with Tony and Billy and understanding more and more how these sets are produced and how far in advance they're built, I'm really looking to probably 2023, 24 to at this point, in hoping that there's some big new kind of splashy type inserts. But okay, next question. Instagram, Andrew Warchevery. Do you think Kachukov, and Power being two of the top 4 young guns in this crop signals a paradigm shift in terms of valuation of defensemen and goalies who've traditionally been undervalued / underappreciated? Troy.
I just said no. I truly believe D and goalies will continue to hold less value. We kind of talked about this, I think it was last episode, just on how kind of our own thought process have changed. But again, goalie and D are just always going to hold less value. That's how it is. There are the rare exceptions. We understand that, where these people in those positions have become superstars. Now with Power and Kachukov being the top 2,
they're 2 of the top 4.
Yeah, the top 2 of the top 4. Yeah, and one being a D, one being the goalie. I don't know. Does that say something about the rookie class? Is that a weaker rookie class?
I was just going to say that. Yeah. I was just going to say that I want to tread lightly on this because I don't think it's a bad rookie class, but there's nobody that's capturing the hearts and minds of the casual fan, Troy.
Yeah. So great question. Right, good question. I like the question. It's a good thought exercise.
All right. This one's fun. We're going to go back to Gongshow Discord, our good friend against 409 Sports Guy. This is a play off the, F, Marry, Kill game. If you're familiar, Troy?
I am familiar with that.
He calls it trade, grade, and burn. So he wants to know between an Ovechkin young gun, a Crosby young gun, and McDavid young gun. For one of them, you have to grade, one of them you have to burn, and one of them you have to trade. Oh boy. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to trade the Crosby young gun because I think there's a lot of value there. You can get something better that I want. I'm going to grade my Ovechkin because I think in the next year, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for growth there. And I'm going to burn the McDavid just because I think it's the most replaceable.
Well, this is
the cards on the list.
Dumb. We had the same exact thing. So I actually used Card Ladder's new feature with the whole gem rate stuff and put in little charts in the show notes or little tables so I could see what I actually ended up at the same thing you did. I had the McDavid Young Gun with a gem rate of 54%. And again, we have these as raw cards, right? We got them as raw. Yeah. That's what we have. And I put the raw at $828. So I said, burn it.
Is that because on why? You have to give your why.
Basically because like you said, if I want it, I'll just go buy it back. It's the cheapest one on there for the raw version. So
don't you have money coming in? I'll just burn it and buy it back.
So I just said burn the McDavid. Ovi, I went with I have the raw Ovi Young Guns. I said grade that thing. Now again, I'm hoping it's gem rate's 43%. I'm hoping I have one because that puts it, if it pulls a PSA 10, I get $6,300 or $6,500, whatever it's at. And if it's a 9, it's running around $2,200. But again, I think Ovi with just the hype, I do think there's a lot of the hype's built in, but I still think there's room to run as he gets closer and closer and closer to that.
There's gonna be big. I can almost guarantee he's gonna have 1 or 2 pop for more than 10 grand.
Yep. So I said grade the Ovi for that reason. I think it's kind of the highest reward on there of these 3 cards. And then for the Crosby, I said trade it because I don't like Sidney Crosby after he beat the USA with Team Canada with the overtime goal. I can't remember if it's the Olympics or the World or the Juniors or the World Championships, but since he beat him, I don't like him. But
so are you going to be off the Connor Bedard trade or train now that if he beats the US today?
I don't know. Actually, I jest like I still would. I'll take any Crosby card. I still look at Crosby cards, but when it came, I'm burning McDavid, grading Ovechkin. Well, I'm left with the trade, so I got to trade Ovechkin trade Crosby and use that money for something else. Or actually,
that was the end of our mailbag. It was a good crop of questions. Thank you again, everyone, for chiming in. We really appreciate it and love doing the mailbag segments. It's also the end of this Thursday's Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast. If you like the episode, please leave a rating or review on Apple, Spotify, or whatever podcast app you listen to us on. If you love the show, and how could you not, because Troy's on it, and you get to hear his silky smooth voice twice a week.
My soothing radio voice you're talking about.
And you want to support us and see us succeed and help us produce a better and bigger show, please consider supporting us via Patreon. You can go to the Patreon website, Patreon. Look for the Patreon link in the show description on the podcast app you're listening to us on, or on our link tree found in social media, and join our out of 99 support tier level. Be one of the first 99 supporters to support our show and forever have that title and chat with us on the regular on the Hockey Cards Gongshow Discord server. If you're not following us on Instagram, you're crazy. Do it right now. Stop what you're doing. Pull the car over. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. And Troy, the Hockey Cards Gongshow podcast is a production of Dollar Box Ventures LLC. Have a great weekend, and we can't wait to chat with you all again next Monday.